I assume all of you have heard the show. And Splice, if you've not heard the show, you've been on the show, so at least you know what's going on with it. So we go through introductions. It'll be, hey everybody, welcome back to a special episode, Card Talk, blah, blah, blah. And then Ted Grant will be along for the ride. Ted's going to love talking about cards. And then we'll thank the patrons. Special thanks to the 2 patrons who are with us for making this so spectacular and awesome. And then we will, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to talk about who they are and what they are in the game. You know, if you want to talk personal, that's fine too, whatever you want to do. And then you want to talk about the card that you pick. The one thing that happened here is that apparently Matt and David, patrons think alike because you guys have the exact same card. So, but that's okay. I think we had plenty to talk about in the last episode. So, you know, I'll give each of you a time to, you know, just to make sure you talked about it. And then the first episode also had hobbits, but then just so you know, Splice picked Shire Folk. David and Matt, right. You picked Tactics Bilbo. So that, I mean, I would have picked that had I been doing that, and I picked Drinking Song. That was my like a good one. And then PRK, the Palantir record keeper, you picked Thranduil, which is a great. I was excited for that card to come out for weeks, so that was a good pick. Ted, you picked Woodman's Path. I'm not sure if we're going to get to you like we did in the last episode, but that's okay, right?
It's okay. We'll have an episode. Yeah. Did we do an episode? We'll get to it if we didn't already.
And then anybody who knows Grant knows which big bear he picked for his card.
The only bear that matters.
Right. Grant loves Grimbjorn, so
just watch the gameplay and you'll understand why.
Right.
Hey Grant, every game I've played so far in LCG Con has had Grimbjorn in it, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly.
See, everyone I've played I haven't played a single game with Grimbjorn in it.
Well, that's your own.
Well, just invite Grant. Problem fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I think Grant has 300 decks made, and 299 of them have Grimbjorn in it, which is fine. But so I was going to say one more thing here. I don't know what I was going to say.
Right, well,
we were talking about the Hobbit mini theme going on in the cards. Was it related to that?
Yeah, no.
David, I'm heading off for a little bit, but the live stream's running. I've got a few bits to do before I get sorted out.
Okay. So, if anything we learned from the last episode is that if you guys have anything to say about what other people are talking about, just feel free to jump in. You know, if it gets too rowdy, that's fine. I'm just going to MC, like I'll ask questions, but I'm going to try to give everybody equal time to, you know, say stuff. If something's a great idea, or if you have an idea, when you just, you know, interrupt. This isn't super formal here. We're just talking about cards, right? It's like our favorite thing here is talk about cards. So Ted especially loves talking about cards.
God help me, I do.
Can I ask? Can I ask 2 things?
Yeah, sure.
First, do I have to introduce myself? Is it the same live?
No, it's a different live, and it's going to be a different show. So you're going to have to go through the whole thing again. This is primarily a U.S. episode this time, but George, the Palantir record keeper, who we call George, who's George, is joining us from Greece.
Yes.
So It's like 3 a.m. where he is. So
yes.
Gosh,
it's kind of late.
Dedication.
Right.
One time I slept at 6 a.m. Watching a live of you.
My goodness.
Yes.
Was that our Ash Mountains live?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
And,
man.
with,
Oh, boy.
That was a
Durin's
long
father,
live stream.
With Durin's father,
Yeah.
who discarded the 3 hidden cash.
Yeah, never again will, like, I feel like the odds of that statistically, like,
Yeah.
when will that happen again?
That was pretty late.
Yeah, that was an amazing game. Yeah, that was great.
And the second question, for the tokens, do I send you email the address or something?
Yeah, so email me your address, and then I will send it so that we can.
And we get to
you the
figure out
tokens.
fun international shipping.
Yeah, it'll be fine. We have dedicated patrons that are paying. No, actually, they're not paying for. They're not paying for that. I actually talked to Gaetan, who is the person who made it, and he's actually going to send you new tokens, and because he lives in Europe. So he's just going to send them from Europe to you, and I'll pay shipping from him. I think he lives in Italy or France, so that's a lot easier to deal with than.
Yeah, they're all next to each other, right? So
yeah,
More or
Right.
less, more or less.
right.
They're at least all part of the EU, right? Places that have to deal with tariffs.
right. What I was going to say is, I don't know who's participating in LCG Con. I guess Splice, I've seen you, and Matt, I've seen you participating in LCG Con, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about LCG Con other than just mentioning it because, we could spend an hour and a half. I don't know who's listening that is actually participating or doing it, so I'll mention it, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on that.
problem.
So just so you know, and obviously you can. Oh, Gaetan is telling me he lives in Germany, actually. So,
Okay.
That's good. Is it 8:00?
Yes, it is.
Is Grant gonna come back?
He said it was set to auto stream, and so we're live.
We're already live. I get it. So let's get started. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I'm actually recording this, recording this, so that I can put it out as the audio episode, not this Monday, but the following Monday. So this will be our episode. This will be our audio episode, and probably not video episode because we already have the live up. But at least you know that it's going to be out there to the audio junkies, and then so that'll be two Mondays from now. So, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Let me. Why am I not? Let me do this. Full screen, and then. Okay. We're ready. Once we're on the table, just give me a yes or no if you need something. So. Let's see here. I'm ready. Ted, you good?
All good.
Okay. Matt Kell, you good?
Ready to go?
Okay. George.
Yes.
Okay. Splice.
Ready to go.
David.
Yep, I'm ready.
Okie doke. Then we will start. Hey everybody, welcome back to a very special second live episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh, and I think Grant Thompson is along for the ride, but he worked all day and he set this up and he's tired, so he's along for the ride, probably sleeping in bed somewhere. So, Grant, thank you very much.
And I'm Ted Bannock. I love broadcasting live. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to talk about cards and broadcast live in this very special episode of Card Talk. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah. You know what else makes this show special, Ted?
The double extra secret specialness of our patrons, some of which
patrons
are on this episode.
I know, it's amazing. So one of the things that we did was we sent out the invite to our patrons first. They get first crack at coming on live if they want to. So we have to make sure that we reach out to Russ. Russ is definitely a is a guy that we want to have live on the show sometime, or not live on the show, but as a guest on the show. But anyways, I want to spend a little bit of time talking and thanking our patrons. We have Daniel, Jake, James, Jason, Joseph, Joshua, Justin, Kyle, Lewis, Mike, Dominic, Phil, Robert, Russ, and Sean, and 2 of our patrons I skipped over because they were special enough to join us. And so we have with us David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And we have Matt, who has joined us before on some playthroughs. But Matt, thank you so much for joining us live on this amazing episode of Card Talk.
Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you. So let's just spend a second and go around the table. We have 4 guests. Seemed to work out okay an hour ago. So we'll go around the table and we will introduce. Everybody can introduce themselves and who they are. And so we'll start with the person who is furthest from my recording station right now, which normally would be Splice in California, but that's not going to be this time right now. We're going to start with the Palantir record keeper who joined us on the first show too. You're the only double person here. Splice wanted to come on the first show, but he already did a show, so
we're pretty lucky.
Yeah. So, George, tell us, Palantir record keeper, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and all that good stuff.
Right. I'm playing the game around a year now. I'm an author on the Vision of the Palantir blog, and I really enjoy this game. I'm playing solo, sometimes with my girlfriend, and we have a really good time. So
she's a keeper if you're playing with your girlfriend.
Yes. Yes, that's all about me.
And what card did you pick?
I picked Thranduil.
Thranduil. So, so just so everybody knows, I don't think I said this, but we asked the listeners to pick a card from the Ered Mithrin Cycle, including the box, the deluxe box, so the Wilds of Ravanium box. So, Thranduil is what the Palantir record keeper picked. Make sure that I say that, and then we'll go with. So, thank you for joining us, Palantir record keeper.
Thank you.
Splice, you're the next furthest away, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what card you picked.
So, name's Chris, or most of you in the community will know me as Splice or Brosy Cotton, or some might actually know me as Braciel or Bob Braciel, because I've mainly done various cosplays of cards for Con of the Ring specifically, and then I had alt art cards made of those costumes and distributed them to people. So that was my claim to fame. And
I can't do the pose, the rosy pose. I'm trying.
Oh yeah,
to do
yeah. You need something like that. There.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was. It started off as a big joke, and with Chad from Cardboard of the Rings, and now has turned into somewhat of a small community little icon. So it was. It's been fun. I've been playing for a couple years now, and I play mainly with two plus players. My buddy, who I mainly played with in San Diego, moved away, but we still play digitally. So, I love the game, and for my card, I chose the Shire Folk because it really enabled one of my favorite decks. So.
Okay, we'll get into that, I'm sure, in a minute. But yeah, so Splice, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking some time out. I actually don't know who's next because I think both of our patrons that joined us, both David and Matt, you guys are both Chicagolanders a little bit. So I don't know who's next, and it's kind of really funny because not only are you guys both patrons of the show and you both live geographically near the same spot, but you also picked kind of the same card. So, David, you've been a patron a little bit longer than Matt, so we'll let you go first. So tell us a little bit about you and tell us which card you picked.
So my name is David. I'm a librarian in Chicago. I've been playing since sometime in the again, the Shadow Cycle. Is that the Ringmaker Cycle? So I started like mid cycle. It started with the Voice of Isengard. But I'd only played one non-solo game until Con of the Rings last year. So. So that was a new experience for me, and but this is my favorite game of all time, and my card I picked tonight to talk about is Tactics Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, that's a great card, and I have to say that I picked my card after I got to see everybody choose their cards, and I would have picked Tactics Bilbo had you not picked it, or Matt. I hate to say if it's cat's out of the bag, or Matt picked it, but I just think that I love Tactics Bilbo, although I'm not sure that the community necessarily loves Bilbo, Tactics Bilbo, but he's way better than that green version of him. Anyways, David, thank you so much for joining us, but B, more importantly, thank you for being a patron for so long of the show. You really rock.
Thank you for thanking me.
Yeah, Matt, you get to go now. You're the only one who nobody knows which card, or that already knows which card, that everybody knows which card you picked. Bro, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Matt, just take it away from me. I can't talk anymore. Ted, you're going to have to MC this show. See ya.
Well, I guess if anyone had been watching the Hobbit playthroughs, my choice is probably not a huge surprise, since I made it pretty well known The Hobbit is my favorite book. I guess tell you a little bit about myself in this game. I've been playing very much like David since Voice of Isengard came out in 2014, but I was playing pretty casually up until last year. I probably played more games the last year than I had the previous 6 years combined.
Sometimes the mood just strikes you, doesn't it? Where you're like, okay, just time to like dig in, right? Just build decks, play.
Yeah, it just was. It was just one of those things where I was like, I really like the game. I keep buying cards even though I'm not playing it as much. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit down and start really go and play every quest at least once through. And so that's kind of where it started. And then I got really involved with the subreddit there, because when I was kind of reading into it, there were a lot of good posters and stuff on there at the time, and then it kind of dived back down for a little bit. And Riddermark Lore made a real big push to kind of revive that subreddit, and kind of helped do what I could, posting about decks I was finding on RigsDB that I found interesting there. And that's actually where I connected with Dave, talking about minimum purchase decks and the minimum purchase Dunlow Trap deck. And since that, I've been doing the playthroughs and joining Grant on live stream occasionally, so having lots of fun with the game.
If you do any more for us, you're gonna have to we're gonna have to give back your patron money, and you're gonna have to become a host of the show. Like, we're just gonna have to like take over hosting duties. I think you do more for the show than I do. Is what I think. So
I highly doubt that, considering I have nothing to do with the back end. I just hop on if I have the time. And that's working out really well, considering my young child who takes a lot of time.
I was gonna say that I don't think anybody knows what happens on the back end, so I don't even know what happens on the back end either. So it just gets directly posted to the show. So, Ted, we should talk about which cards we picked. We'll just say them, and then as they get worked into the conversation. So Ted, which card did you pick for this?
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, we're gonna have our regular episodes to really do some deep dives, of course, but. We're talking about favorite cards from the Ered Mithrin Cycle, and I'm a real pathy type lore player. I like to manipulate locations. That's a big part of the game, so I picked Woodman's Path, which came out as part of a sort of a new evolving archetype, and it can be a surprising play and very powerful against some certain quests.
there's not very many. There's not much more time for this game to evolve. There's only 2 more APs that need to be released, or 2 or 1. Have they released Land of Sorrow yet?
You know what? I believe it's sort of released now, like in August.
Oh, right.
I picked it up today at my local game store.
Ah, okay. So there it is, everybody. Breaking news: go buy Land of Sorrow.
I don't know I don't know if they accidentally broke the street date or not, but I told them I had I came to pick up my Under the Ash Mountains pre-order, and they handed me both. So.
Hey, that's great. Yeah. Well, and I picked Drinking Song to stick with the Hobbit theme that I so love. Drinking Song is great. Not that Drinking Song necessarily has to go in a Hobbit deck, but it sings a little bit better in a Hobbit deck, so to speak. So
It's not only David's favorite card from the cycle, but it's the favorite thing he likes to do in real life.
yeah. And Grant, you're back.
Yes.
Which card did you pick for your? Not that anybody who knows the show or watches anything wouldn't know which card you picked, but go ahead. Which card did you pick for the?
Like a lass. No, I'm only joking. It's
Yeah. Yeah. You gonna tell us which card? Or are you gonna make us all guess?
Yeah, it's Grumbion.
Oh, yeah.
From the Withered Heath.
Right. Yeah, he's good. So this is what we're gonna do. Is we're gonna start. I feel like we should start with the Palantir Record Keeper and his card, and we can read down through. We could talk about his card, and then we can talk about Hobbits for the rest of the time, because who doesn't love? I mean, Splice, your Hobbit deck. We could get into details of how your deck works and why you don't want to run, Tactics Bilbo in it and all this good stuff. But so PRK. I'm going to call you PRK here.
Yes.
You picked Thranduil. So do you have Thranduil ready? Can you tell us
Yes.
what the card is and who?
He's a leadership hero, of course, with 9 threats, 1 willpower, 1 attack, 3 defense, and 4 HP. He's got a combat action which says play a Sylvan ally from your hand. You do not read the resource match for this ally. Limit once per round. Right. He also has one of my favorite artworks in the game.
Oh yeah,
say.
Magali is an amazing artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, first of all, he's a great defender for Sylvans, especially with Cloak of Lorien. He can defend most of the regular attacks, not dragon or anything crazy.
He's still just an elf.
Yes.
Frail elf.
Yes.
Well, remember in the Hobbit movie, doesn't he have that dragon attack? Like, isn't that when he's like, I was attacked by the dragon and his face fades away or something? I don't know.
I don't remember well.
I think that was just a movie thing.
I remember a scene that he jumped from his mount with 2 blades and slay dozens of orcs or something. That was amazing. So, he's a great defender, of course, but most importantly, you can open up your Sylvan deck, your Silvery Sylvan deck, with including all spheres. You can play allies from any sphere you want, especially during combat. So you can, if you go with the standard deck of Thranduil, Galadriel, and help me out.
Celeborn?
Celeborn, yes.
You're speaking my language here. This is my deck that I love to play. I modify my Slippery Sylvan deck to fit every sort of thing that I need. So
you can bring, of course, lore with the Ring of Galadriel and with Nenya, I think.
Yep.
And you can bring also tactics during combat, Sylvan tactics, and play them during combat when they are most in need. You usually don't want them for questing or anything else.
Right. It's almost like I wish that one willpower was somewhere else. Ted will probably disagree with me. Like, you never know when you need just one extra willpower somewhere.
You don't.
But that one willpower I wish was like somewhere, or I wish he had like 2 attack. I don't know if he doesn't need to be 4 defense or something, but
He does have a unique stat line, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if any other hero has that distribution of stats, or even other character.
Baragon
so bizarre.
is
Yeah,
like
Baragon.
weird like that.
It's a defender pattern, I think, of
Yeah.
having a low willpower and high defense.
I think like one of the most important things about him is having that combat action piece, because it really lets you just get some of those Sylvans in, like the one that readies a hero. I forget the name of it.
The Greenwood Archer.
Greenwood
Yes.
Archer.
The Greenwood Archer, yeah. And then a lot of the tactics, like you said, you can now play them when you want, rather than having to figure out something earlier in planning of, maybe if I very good tail if I peace and thought to exhaust my people or exhaust Galadriel, I can ready her. You have now more combat uses for them, which I think is really strong for the archetype.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bringing in the Marksman of Lorien, reduce his, his cost with Olorien, and then bring him in and reduce somebody's defense by 2 during combat phase is, as my co-host Ted would say, that's all right. That's
Yeah, seems okay.
seems okay. I mean, that's what makes it awesome, is that you can play all 4 spheres with that lineup that you're saying, PRK.
Also, you have a great defender, and you can always attach Elven King and just defend 2 times.
Right, and that and I think that that's what the Sylvans were missing was a beefy defender.
Yeah.
Celeborn was the defender before that, and because he had 2 defense and 4 hit
Yeah,
points.
they had the Nath guide prior, but that just sort of like wasn't a strong enough piece on its own.
The defender of the Nath, you mean?
Defender of the Nath.
The Nath guide is a good card, but not probably a defender.
Oh, did I say Nath guide? I
I
did.
did say Nath guide.
Okay. Defender of the Nath. Thank you, David.
I actually found Sylvan Tracker more useful as a defender than the defender of
Yeah.
the Knight.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, yeah.
That's right. Sylvan Tracker, which is another Shadows of Mirkwood, like, talk about the lifetime of the game. You're talking about cards over 9 years still being used in viable decks today.
That's
you don't
amazing.
have this. Yeah, somebody in the last show was talking about how this game is so amazing because you're not dealing with cards. It's not a competitive thing, and you don't get cards that are getting whatever excluded from the card pool because they're overpowered. It's not you don't have to go out and buy 100 of them because it's not collectible. The format of the game, it's just amazing. They've done such an amazing job with this. So yeah.
Thranduil always. I want to make one mention about his ability that tripped me up personally. At least the first couple times I read him, I will sometimes confuse his ability with an ability that's similar, such as Elrond or Radagast, where you don't require a resource match from that hero's resource pool.
Yeah.
So Elrond, for example, he doesn't require a match, but Thranduil, he lets you play the Sylvans using other heroes' resources, not requiring a match. And sometimes that trips me up. I think like, I need 3 resources on Thranduil to play my 3-cost ally, but that's not the case with him. You can just use any resources on any hero you have.
The best way to think of it is like the allies are neutral.
Right.
So you pay from every hero you want.
Oh, yeah, it's a great way to remember it. But I still, even today, when I see him on the table, it'll trip me up. I'm like, I can't afford him.
Yeah.
I can't afford this ally. But I'm like, wait, that's not how he works.
Yeah, I think, like, Ted, you were talking about using Thranduil in the new Bond of Friendship deck because you get 4 resources, and during combat, you can use those resources to bring out any of those.
He is a wonderful Bond of Friendship contract hero because he blends your 4 resources together and just fill the deck with Sylvan allies.
Yeah, that's. Yeah,
That's a good call. Yeah.
I mean,
it's lovely.
I mean, it just provides that smoothing that you don't need. Then you don't need to include other cards for smoothing because you can bring out these guys in combat phase.
Yeah, he's a natural resource fixer.
He's a fixer. He's a fixer.
Although it's restricted to Sylvan allies.
Of course, of course.
Right.
Otherwise,
But there's some good. There's some good Sylvans that you want to bring out. You know, like Legolas and Haldir, and I don't know, a million others that I
Green with
can
Dancer.
Yeah, I feel like all the different range, like the tactics range, you can get some powerful range in a multiplayer game.
Rumil, Orphan, all the brothers. Like I don't know. I just sign me up. That's
And
all.
if you drop Rumil in the combat phase and you already have your other archers out, you can take out an enemy before it gets a chance to attack you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Strong.
Yeah. So that's like we're gonna move to the Hobbits in a minute, but I was so excited to do this show because it's like Hobbits and Sylvans.
People just
It's
pick
like
your
right in my
favorite
wheel-
cards, David. I
know.
Everyone just pick cards you love. And you're like, this is great.
Let me ask a question. Somebody in the YouTube chat just asked, "What are the 3 best non-hero cards for a Sylvan deck?" So I'm going to say Tree People. If you're running a Sylvan deck, you have to play Tree People, right?
Maybe Nath Guides.
The Nath Guide is really good, but that's a really good card because you can target any enemy or any hero, not just a Sylvan hero.
Generally, not only Sylvan decks. Generally.
Yeah, I'd say Lorien too is also a really, really key piece of that deck because it specifically reduces the cost of your Sylvans, which is great because then it doesn't conflict with other resource generating cards like Steward of Gondor.
So because Sylvans didn't really have a good defense option until recently, and Thranduil still needs a little bit of setup, Feigned Voices is also really good.
Absolutely.
I was going to say Feigned Voices is a super powerful.
And so, because the question was worded best, I think that's a little different than saying favorite. One of my favorite cards is the new Host of the Galathrim, where you pick up all your Sylvans and then throw them back out on the board when you have 6 or 7 Sylvans and they all do their stuff all over again. That is a ton of fun. That is just so much fun.
I think if you want to know our opinions on some key pieces to the Sylvan deck, go check out our playlist on the YouTube channel, Sylvan February. You'll find all our thoughts in that video.
Legolas, Galleon is really good because, I mean, he's 0 cost, so you can trigger all those events.
We could pretty much name every card part of that archetype, right?
I know. Right. Depends on what you want your Sylvans to do.
But
also with Thranduil, you can pay for expensive allies and share the cost between heroes. You don't have to play from a single hero. Maybe Rumil, for example. He has 4 costs, so you can share between the heroes.
Right, you can just split the cost between everybody.
Yes.
So,
exactly. Yep, that was something I was speaking about. He's very flexible in that fashion. It's great.
Okay. Enough about the Sylvans, however. I could fill up another 3 hours.
Enough about David's favorite thing. It's time to talk about David's other favorite thing. That apparently everybody loves.
Yeah, is Hobbits. And so I think we'll talk to Matt and David first, but Christian, your card fits right in there. So when the Shire folk come in, you can definitely talk about when that comes in. But then we'll give you some time on the floor to talk about Shire folk, definitely. So David, do you want to read Tactics Bilbo Baggins?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, great.
So he's a 9 threat cost hero, 1 willpower, 1 attack, 2 defense, 2 hit points. So he's got 3 extra points threat, the Hobbit and Burglar trait. And response, after Bilbo Baggins commits to the quest, choose an enemy in the staging area. Until the end of the phase, Bilbo Baggins gets plus X willpower, where X is that enemy's threat. If the player's quest successfully, deal 1 damage to that enemy, 2 damage instead if it is guarding a card.
The only thing that makes me grumpy about it is that if it's guarding a card as opposed to if a card is attached to it. Because Faramir, that came out in the cycle also is if there's a card attached to it, deal 4 points of damage to it because of traps and things like that. So I wish that it was attached as opposed to guarded, but I understand he's the burglar. He's going in to do that. So David and Matt, what makes him awesome? I mean, I know what makes him awesome, of course, but this show isn't about me.
You can go ahead first, David, since you read the card.
So tactics is my least played sphere actually. So I like him that he's a tactics a hero with like a non-fighty, primarily because I primarily play single-handed solo. So it's nice to get tactics access, but have a hero that can fulfill quests. He's absolutely amazing in 3 Hunters decks. I've found I had some really good decks before I got a hold of 3 Hunters, and then at Con of the Rings last year, I played with somebody who had proxied the 3 Hunters contract, and immediately that really opened up a huge amount of stuff for Bilbo because. And in Land of Sorrow, there's the new Bilbo's Plan card, which is also perfect for him, and it's 0 cost, and it's in Sphere of Tactics Bilbo. So I like using the guarded attachments. I like that he makes the guarded attachments easier.
Yes, somebody who loves guarded attachments. Ted is not a fan of guarded attachments.
They come with encounter cards. Who
Yes,
likes encounter cards?
David and I play solo, so if David and the other David hear me play solo, it's not as horrible as when you're playing, you can control it better. Anyways.
I played almost exclusively 4-player at Con of the Rings last year. We played everybody. The group I played with primarily, everybody was using a lot of guarded attachments.
Oh my god.
And it worked. It worked really well. One of the reasons being, if you have Tactics Bilbo and Leadership Eomer, they make an amazing team. Because you can bump up Tactics Bilbo's willpower, use Leadership Eomer's response when he commits to the quest to take out that enemy, and then you get a guarded attachment before the quest phase even resolves.
Oh, yep, very good.
And then if you have Bilbo's Plan, you can use the response on Bilbo's Plan to swap it out again.
Do me a favor. Summarize Bilbo's Plan, because that's one of those cards. No, it's just... I'm not as familiar. It's like we skipped over a couple of adventure because the spoilers came out for the Fortress of Nirn, and so I just forget what Bilbo's Plan is.
So Bilbo's Plan is a tactics event, 0 cost. Response, after you attack and destroy an enemy, shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck and discard cards from the top until an enemy is discarded. Add that enemy to the staging area to discard a non-unique location with threat equal to or less than that enemy's threat. So basically, it lets you swap a location for an enemy, which if you have Tactics Bilbo is great.
Right, and especially if that location is guarding a card, right? Yeah. Because you get rid of that thing. Oh. That's great.
Which enables Tactics Bilbo to access the Mithril shirt more easily.
Right. Or what's the other one that's guarded location? The Stone of Elastrian, which would be nice on Bilbo too, plus 2. Yeah, that is a good one, huh? Card draw and extra willpower. Matt, add to that.
Oh man, he covered a lot of the same things that I like. So one of the first things I did with it was put him in a 3 Hunters deck.
I would love for you guys to expand upon that, because could you name a couple of restricted attachments that go well on him?
Ooh,
I know.
So,
Sting.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Are there any specific ones beside? There's a couple of generic ones, right? Like that anyone can equip, like
Spear.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
dagger of Westernies, the round shield. Those are just some typical ones that a lot of 3 Hunters decks run. I didn't know if there was one that I'm missing. That goes on Bilbo specifically.
Celebrian Stone is really good on Bilbo in a 3 Hunters deck.
Okay, so the ones that boost his willpower because he's just questing anyway, primarily.
Well, no, but I mean,
Right?
I think that when you put Sting on Bilbo, and then that makes him a three defense defender, which is just as good as Thranduil, right? 3 defense, less hit points, but you can get around that using some things. But then you put Spears of the Citadel on him. Now he's doing at least 2 points of damage when he defends something because of Sting and the Spear of the Citadel, and he's defending for 3 at least.
Another restricted attachment that someone brought up to me recently was Hobbit Pony. It was a good one for him because you
Hobbit
commit
Pony.
him.
That's something I was kind of fishing for. Okay, 'cause that's a Hobbit only restricted attachment,
And it's free.
and it costs
It's-
0.
It lets you commit him after staging, so that if you don't have an enemy out in play already, which is often the case in single-handed solo, you could go ahead and pick a new target, get the willpower boost, and do the damage. So that's what I've been waiting to try out, and I'm very crafty right now with putting in with Spirit Mary, because then you can lower your threat as well if they both have Hobbit ponies, and hopefully keep away from engaging enemies until you're ready to take them out with like Dave's Spear of the Citadel and and Sting.
Is that a new card? Dave Spear of the Citadel?
Yes, Dave's Spear of the Citadel. Alt art right there.
Yeah, there it is.
But it has the restriction only attaches to Tactics Bilbo.
Yeah. right.
Response. Get really excited.
Yeah. Right. Throw your hands up in the air. And so, I mean, Christian, I know that you play your card in a specific deck, but I mean, it's almost like Shirefolk works with Tactics Bilbo because his threat is so high. Tactics Bilbo is the high, or Bilbo itself is the highest threat cost.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So that's one reason why I picked Shirefolk. So for those that are listening, the Shirefolk is a 0-cost event that says neutral event. Play only if each of your heroes is a Hobbit. Action, reduce your threat by 4. So it's nice and simple. But one of the things I thought it really brought is, like you're saying, that much-needed threat reduction to a Hobbit deck. So it's like, yes, you could start low, but certain quests, they just pile on the Doomed or things like that, and your threat just rises, and then you're like, oh, I had all these cool effects that need my threat to be lower than their engagement cost, and now that's ruined. So this kind of gave you an opportunity to get back into that. Without having to go through some crazy shenanigans like Galadrim's greeting or putting in like an Arwen ally to use, Elrond's counsel or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it frees up a lot of deck space, and it's neutral, and it's 0.
And
You gotta love the artwork too, right?
yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
works fantastic with Frodo Baggins, Spirit Frodo Baggins.
Spirit Frodo Baggins, which
That's
PRK used. Well, that was his favorite card in the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle. So
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good choice.
yeah.
It also triggers Hobbit Pipe.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Hobbit Pipe is the card that lets you, when you play an event, specifically an event that lowers your threat, you get exhausted to draw a card, and it's like, oh, this all just fits, fits together.
Yeah. That's actually the main reason why I love this card, because I have a deck built that's all about Hobbit Pipe, basically, and it's Hobbits, and I use the Hobbit Pipes for my card draw engine, and then I use the Song of Arundel, which lets whenever another player raises their threat by 1, you can basically take that threat, you raise your threat by 1 and lower their threat. And so using that that combo with all the pipes to draw my cards to get all the threat reduction events, I have a deck where multiple times I've gotten the table down to basically 0. I end with 0 threat, and everyone else at the table's reduced, touched their threat dial like 3 times.
Everybody's in secrecy, right? It's like Timely Aid all of a sudden became an auto-include in every deck.
Is that the deck
Yeah,
you and I
exactly.
used to beat Nightmare Journey along the Anduin?
Yeah, I mean, we played Splice. Grant and I and you played, right? Isn't that? Did we play Nightmare
Yep.
during Long Anduin and
I
beat
think
it
so,
pretty
yeah.
easily? Yeah, a little while ago. So
Yeah, we never had to, like, those trolls just sat up there and never had to, we got to take them on our own terms. Every enemy you can kind of just pick. It does get a little tricky sometimes when you have to manage that you only get one optional engagement, and sometimes you're like, we're ready, we want more, but everyone's like, our threat's too low.
Yeah.
Well, if you have Tactics Bilbo, you can take them out in the staging.
right, that's right. Yeah.
No,
I
but
mean,
you mentioned it well there. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
no, go ahead, Splice.
I was going to say, like, you're mentioning, too, of another reason why I love this card is the secrecy aspect. As, you know, I started off playing solo a lot, and I really like keeping my threat low, and one of my first favorite heroes was Done Here, so I could attack in the staging area whenever I want, so I kind of got this mindset, just keep my threat low and stay out of stuff, and then with the Hobbits, too, you know, I liked it. I'm like, oh, keep your threat low, and do all the secrecy shenanigans. But then once again, you would get out of that pretty quickly, and drawing into like a resourceful a few turns in, and you're like, oh, this would have been great, but now I'm too far out of secrecy and I don't have ways to get back down there. Didn't feel so good. So now you can be like, oh, Shire Folk, resourceful, or other secrecy cards. So it kind of brought back a little more legitimacy to that archetype, I feel, as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's awesome that it just goes on for all hobbits, right? Like that's the awesome thing, is it's support for that hobbit thing. I think in the last episode that we talked about, we were talking about how hobbits themselves are not, like, if you just have a hobbit, 4 hobbit heroes, like, they're fragile, you know, they're super fragile, so they need all these little toys, and it's so thematic. We came to that conclusion last episode that, like, it's super thematic because it fills that void of, like, the tinkerers and the, you know, the people who are just kind of innocent. They could kill something if they had to, but they're not like, they're not designed to do that. They're kind of just tricksy little folks that are just trying to steal rings with riddles, as opposed to, you know, like, so, and Tactics Bilbo falls right into that category, right? Tactics Bilbo can, if you play it right, he can kill the hill troll before you ever engage it, right? You play Grey Wanderer Tactics Bilbo, and you just keep taking the hill troll every round, and you're doing 1 damage. 9 rounds later, you have it. Take it slow. It's not necessarily the most exciting game that you're playing. Yeah, but you know, you're still
death by 1,000 Bilbo cuts.
right.
Right. It's
yeah. I mean, go ahead, David.
I was going to say, I would not recommend playing Tactics Bilbo unless you have Shire Folk in, when you're playing with a bunch of other people who are using a bunch of Doomed cards, though.
Yeah.
Because I had that experience last year at Con of the Rings. I raised my threat 12 points in the first round, and I was like, okay, I guess this deck isn't going to do anything this game.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right? So everything's going to come out of the staging area, and you're never going to be able to do anything to it. So now, here's the thing. I think Thranduil, if we're going back to PRK's card, is, you know, it goes into Sylvan decks, but isn't necessarily all that versatile. I think, like, you don't generally put Thranduil in other decks. There's better defenders for General Baragon and things like that.
He opened up the Force Sphere for Sylvan, actually.
Yes, he did open up that 4th sphere for Sylvans. Exactly. And then, of course, Shire Folk is not all that versatile either, right? Like, I can put it in my, you know, my single hero, you know, not my single hero, my, you know, as a dead card if I wanted to, you know, like my Hobbit Treebeard deck, but that's not, you know, that's not going to happen, right? But so how versatile is Tactics Bilbo? Like, you guys that play with him, you know?
yeah. What other heroes are usually commonly played with Tactics Bilbo, for example? Well, most commonly, what do you pair him with? Or just no one, and it's just Grey Wanderer, right?
I really like faster.
Bastard. Oh, push him back into the staging
okay.
area and reduce your threat, right? Doesn't he reduce
Yeah.
your threat?
Yeah, he reduces your threat by 2, so that kind of like helps with Tactics Bilbo's artificially inflated threat.
Yeah, that's a great match. I never thought Grant left me dangling there. Grant has a done here duck shoot deck that he pushes everything back into the staging area and then just kills it with done here.
A duck shoot deck? That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how.
Does it have a loyal hound in it? Is there a dog?
Generally speaking, it's all spirits, so no, it doesn't have a loyal hound in.
Oh, okay. All right, then.
I do have a version with Eowyn, but alas, she is also not law.
Right. Matt, what else do you use with?
I actually do play him Grey Wanderer most of the time.
I mentioned that up because I think we had played a game and you had loaded up a Grey Wanderer a Bilbo deck, and that was very fun to see it get played.
Yeah, that one still needs some work. So I was trying to basically play direct damage Bilbo, and had like Sting and a bunch of Eagle allies, and try to sneak attack to send to the Thorondor, which required a bit of work since you could only sneak attack during planning. Pretty much.
Oh, that's a viable strategy though, right? I guess if you pair Tactics Bilbo with other direct damage cards like Spear of the Citadel, Gondorian Spearman, Hail of Stones, just to name a couple, and the Descendant, which you mentioned, he can just be that one extra consistent damage. You know, heck, you could pair him with Thalin too, right?
Yep. The other deck I've played of it is 3 Hunters or 3 Hobbits Hunters deck, and I used Pippin and Sam. Pippin to increase the engagement cost to keep them in the stage area a little longer. Also using Chris's Shirefolk to help keep under threat, and then leverage leadership Sam's boosting and turn him into a super attacker defender when I had to pull someone down. Just load him up with the Hobbit Cloak, Sting, Daggers of Westerness, and everything else. The unfortunate thing with doing those is they're really, really slow. And then I have a kind of janky Super Bilbo song deck, where it's like get Fireside Song on him, start him off with the lore version, and Helm of Secrecy out the tactics version later. So if you really want a long single-handed solo game, that's an interesting Grey Wanderer deck. That one, I played one quest with it. It took 20 turns to beat Journey Along the Anguin.
That's commitment.
That was a marathon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon you could, what is it? Thorngill, right?
Thorngill, right?
It's right for
card.
Thorngill.
Yeah, I have a Thorngill Tactics Bilbo Grey Wanderer deck as well. That's a lot of fun to play. Just drawing
I watched
cards.
your playthrough, and I was like, oh man, this deck is just went a little bit different direction for my Super Bilbo one. So yours had more allies and everything else, where I was like, I'm only running Master of the Forge, so I can draw all the songs, Rosie for the boosting, and I think the Minstrels to fetch songs.
Right.
So can I ask for an advice? I'm writing a review for Reigns of Belegost, and I thought of making a Tactics Bilbo deck to be more thematic with the quest, but I don't find a way to combine his effect with the locations that guard the loot.
So Ruins of Belegost is the print on demand with the loot, right? That's with the loot. It's like the Framsburg, but less fun.
More or less. The more frustrating one.
Yeah. Which is funny to say about Ghost of Framsburg.
With the complicated quest cards.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And there are a lot of guarded objectives, but most of the times locations guard them. So I want to make a thematic deck with Bilbo. I tried though. In order to use him for acquiring the objectives. Do you have any ideas how it might work?
Because so I don't know if that's a great thing, because that loot objective you can't do anything with it because it's guarded, and then it's not. He doesn't do any damage to things that are attached. He only does them to guard. Oh, it is, but they are guarded. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right. So Faramir, you gotta bring in Lord Faramir because he does 4 damage to something, but it's
Yeah,
locations.
But
that are gonna-
locations, the active location guards the objective. So
Well,
Ted's Woodsman Path will help that.
oh,
Certainly, yeah, helps
Woodsman's-
free up, attachments on locations. Certainly, yeah, that's real tricky what you're trying to do. I do love the thematic playthrough, right? Of
yeah.
you want Bilbo, he's a burglar. You want him to burgle.
Yeah, I thought there are treasures. What hero should fit best?
You've also
Yeah,
got
that
Strider's
makes
Path
absolute
that
sense
could
to
help.
me.
What were you saying, Grant?
Strider's Path may also help. Shift.
Right.
Oh, the Mariner's Compass. That also helps too because you get to take out a location, and then if you take out the location that's guarding a loot objective, you get and then you replace it. You free up the thing. So Mariner's Compass I've played on Bilbo too.
You know, what real is interesting about that scenario, since you're bringing it up, that's kind of unique because that scenario has an enemy called the Lurker in the Depths, which you most commonly face. And he's a 4-threat enemy that he has 12 hit points and can only take 4 damage a round.
Yes.
But he's not immune to player card effects unless there's something on the quest card that does that.
No.
So he just innately, during that stage, Bilbo's fantastic because he can target the Lurker in the Depths.
And essentially
Bilbo will-
cancel out that.
Well,
yeah.
Bilbo will be questing for 5 and hitting him for 1 damage every turn. So he's
Yes.
still a good hero for that
And,
scenario.
and
I'd say.
with the dragon, he must be good because every 3 turns, the dragon joins the staging area.
Oh, right. Man, it's been so long. I'm scarred by the ruins of Belagast. We played it on Wandering Took stream about a month and a half ago, I guess, and that's just like, whoa.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. We lost, but it was a good game.
It's really
Yeah.
hard quest, and I'm writing a review. Also, I made a flow chart to keep track of the quest card sequence,
And
How very kind of you.
depending on the loot objective that you've got.
Yeah, that could actually be really helpful because that scenario is
It's
tricky.
really helping to visualize the
Yeah, it's
quest.
hard to. Yeah, it's tough
Yep.
to figure it out.
Uh,
Well, I wish I had a better answer. Oh, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about what David said earlier about Bilbo's plan, because that still would work. So once you take out an enemy with Bilbo's ability, you could still swap out one of the locations that's guarding the objective, and it would work like the Mariner's Compass or the shortcut.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, Bilbo's plan.
I'll try that.
And then to pull out the Eagle answer, we got Meneldor now. And so you could play Meneldor, put a couple progress on location, and either use the Eagle attachment that bounces 1 back to your hand, or do the sneak attack combo.
Oh, all right.
This is why I love this community. PRK brings out the ruins of Belagast, and people are like,
It just
and then
opens
it's like,
up.
okay, let's
try to beat it.
Right. However much I would love to spend all night going live and talking to people, I think we're going to wrap this up here. But I do have in my hot little hands the bag of tokens
fancy.
here. So here, PRK already won this on the previous live stream, so he actually has raised everybody's odds. So Tactics Bilbo has a 67% chance of getting the and Shire Folk has a 33% chance of getting these nice tokens. These were I don't want to say they were handmade, but they were hand designed by a member of the community, especially for this event. We were going live, and we reached out to Gaetan Agnini, who lives in Germany, I guess, and he was the guy who said, I want to make some of these, and I said, could you make enough to give away? So we have enough to give away. So So what I have is I'm going to assign everybody a number, and I have a 4-sided dice in my hand. I know that sounds weird. So it's going to be David, you're going to be number 1 because you're number 1 in our book. Matt, Matt, you're going to be number 2 because you're number 1 in our book as well. And then Christian, you're number 3 because you're also number 1 in our book.
But you're also 3 people, right? You're Splice and Brosy and Brosio.
Right.
For now.
For now.
Right. Yeah, until the next con comes up and you have some other thing. So, and then if we get a 4, I'll just re-roll and see what happens. I wasn't expecting to do this.
The suspense.
Okay,
Here we go.
We
Card Talk Live. Token
drum roll,
giveaway.
please. Let's see.
My drum set's in the living room. It's too far away.
The answer is number 2 is the winner of the tokens. So that's a number 2. I can't see it, but I'm going to get it really.
Oh, that is not. Okay, I kind of see the head. So yeah, okay. I got
I don't know. Okay, so Matt, you win the tokens. So you, Matt, when you get a chance, just send me an email with your address if you sure you want me to have your address. If not, you can send it to Ted, and Ted can send me his address, and I can send it to Ted, and Ted can send it to you. I don't know, but anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us all the way from all around the world, Greece and California and Illinois and Wisconsin and England and New Jersey. We're all together here. It's been an amazing time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. This has been fun. It's always fun to just talk about the game. You know, that's half the fun. Is theory crafting and just talking about it.
So yeah, sometimes it's been a little too much, right? It's like, oh, I just spent 2 hours building decks and didn't play. But it is. It's just as fun. That's why we love talking about it. It's why we love to do the show, and it's to help spark talk about the cards and to hopefully just inspire people to look at cards in a different way. So I've been real fortunate to have been invited onto the show since these guys have started it. So thanks for coming on and being a part of it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. And